daytime TV icon, embarking on your 12th season with your show, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But, you know, Steve, one of the really admirable things about you is you've had some things that you've gone through this past year. You're sitting on this desk, and sometimes we bring people in who've had things happen to them. We go, should we ask this question? It's our journalistic duty to do so.
Sure.
Who knows how they're going to respond to it? Well, you had a situation occur with you in late January of 2018, driving a car, ultimately charged with driving under the influence, a situation that made national headlines. And there's a gray area with how it was handled initially, but then ultimately, finally, the story ultimately coming out. Here you are, willing to address it. Can you shed light on kind of what occurred?
Well, the thing about the two different stories is the media called me basically right when I got out of the hospital. And I had suffered brain trauma. So whatever I addressed or whatever I said, I don't even remember saying it. I have no recollection of it. Like I said, I just was involved in a serious car accident.
Very serious car crash.
And listen, I had a serious lapse of judgment. I've made changes to make sure things like that never happen again. And for me, the wonderful thing was the outpouring support of my fans and my family and friends. Everybody was just tremendous. And it's got me moving into a great direction. Like I said, I'm human, I made a mistake, and I'm moving on.
Well, I think the thing that's really, again, admirable about this is the path to redemption fits seamlessly with the new season of your show.
Sure.
And you've tied that in. So not only have you owned what's occurred, you said, hey, I'm sitting here and I try to resolve disputes, but I got to take it upon myself. I'm on a path of redemption. I want this time with my new season. Can you elaborate?
Well, like anybody, you make mistakes in life. And even, you know, I felt that nothing like that would ever happen to me. But things do happen to you, and you have to learn from it. And with our show, we are trying to get across a message to the people at home. I think our show really comes down to a simple concept of right and wrong. But you can make mistakes, and you should be able, you know, to be forgiven and be able to move on from that.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the topics that you're going to be covering this season of the show?
So what's interesting, as long as we've been doing the show, and we've always done the conflict, the abuse, the relationships, and everything else, what we really do now is like true crime stories. And we had a guy who was involved in, he was home invaded twice within a matter of weeks. He ended up killing the home invader, who turned out to be his best friend.
What?
Which
was he robbing him, or was
he was robbing him? He had a mask on, and then a couple weeks later, when because he was charged because he wasn't supposed to have a gun.
Sure.
But if you're invading my house twice in 2 weeks, I'm gonna have a gun too and shoot somebody who's coming into my house. But he ended up getting shot 4 times. And so there was we did a lie detector test whether the other family was involved with a little payback. But so we're doing a lot of true crime stories of homicide. Yeah. So the show's really kind of going in that direction now. So.
And how many topics do you kind of consider before ultimately choosing the one that makes it onto the show?
Well, my wife, who's here this morning, she's my executive producer, and she really decides what topics and what shows we're going to do.
So I think it's pretty cool how you jump into disagreements in your show, and it's kind of this blunt matter-of-factness that has a little bit of warmth to it as well. You're like, hey, you can do A or B.
Right.
Which one would you rather want? Then do the right thing. Like, you kind of coach people through life.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I was raised here in Chicago. My dad was a Chicago policeman, and basically was, you don't even have to be told what you should be doing. So, and that's what we get to with our show. You know what you should be doing, and there's right and wrong. We keep it simple, and I think that's the appeal show. It's very simple, too.
One other thing I want to ask you quickly before we change topics here is you mentioned your wife being the EP of your show. Ultimately, she's the deciding factor on what topics are going to go and how it works. Like any relationship, I'm sure there's some back and forth and there can be some battling. How do you guys make it work still?
There's no back and forth.
That's the ticket, huh?
I mean, she says what we're going because there was times probably for the first 9 years, yeah, I'd be like, I don't want to do that. And she's like, just do it. And now if I don't want to do it, I just like, yep, let's just do it.
I'm doing it.
That sounds like life advice, man.
I'm going to lose anyway, so just do it.
All the guys watching are like, yep, me too.
So 12th season, though, as you go through this, I mean, what has been, I mean, you started, as I recall, with Jerry Springer as you were serving as security and became a personality. Jerry goes to Dancing with the Stars, and they say, hey, we're going to have Steve Wilkos.
Well, they couldn't shut the production of the show down. Because, well, they thought Jerry was going to be on for 1 week and he'd come back. Well, he ended up being on for 5 or 6 weeks. Well, they said, well, he's gone. You're going to replace him. And I'm like, what? You know, they're like, you'll be fine. Go out there. Well, then Jerry was on for 6 weeks. I ended up doing like 30 shows.
Oh, wow.
And when those shows aired, the ratings were really good. And then the next season, they said, well, just do another 30 or whatever it was. And then NBC had the great idea of like, let's give this guy a show, which when they called me, it was like late at night, and I thought it was one of my friends messing around with me.
Playing a joke on you.
But then I went up and I told my wife she was sleeping, my kids were sleeping. I go, I just got a TV show, and she's like, what? You know. So, but then the scary part started because it's like, what do we do and what kind of show? And so we kind of stuck with what I was good at, being a Chicago policeman, and we just ran with it.
I think it works, Steve.
Yeah.
12 seasons, here we go. I think you're doing okay for yourself. The Steve Wilkos Show, it airs weekdays at 10 and 11, and it happens right here on the U.